It's on.
That's working.
Hot mic, sorry about that.
Sorry.
That's just a test of resilience. I'm still here.
If you stay, we know you want to talk. Okay. Did you get that? Approved, passed 3-0 with 1 abstain.
I did.
Nancy?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
I believe pursuant to the bylaws, you're going to need to postpone a decision as a majority of 4 members is necessary. I'm sorry, that's to constitute a quorum. You can still adopt it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Majority of the members present.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, so we make a motion
Nancy?
and second it?
That was me.
Scott?
Thank you.
And John abstained because he wasn't here.
Okay.
This time we'd like to present V11-006, 13081 Highway 9 North, to allow business to have a third wall sign. And let me read the Board of Zoning Appeals statement. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-legal board composed of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determinations. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these 4 considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief if granted would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. The sign variance consideration reads as follows. Relief only to the sign ordinance may be granted where existing foliage or structures bring about a hardship whereby a sign meeting minimum letter size, square footage, and height requirements cannot be read from an adjoining public road. Angela, will you please present V11-006?
Petition number V11-006, 13081 Highway 9 North. The requested variance is to allow a business to have a third wall sign. The site is a 5,000 square foot building in the Deerfield Place Shopping Center. The complex is situated on just over 31 acres, located at the intersection of Webb Road, Highway 9, and Deerfield Parkway. Bethany Bent Urgent Care takes up 2 suites in Building 300. The sign ordinance allows a business in the Highway 9 overlay to have 2 wall signs at 5% of the wall area. Bethany Bent Urgent Care has installed their allotted 2 wall signs. One 100-square-foot sign is located on the southern elevation facing the driveway into the shopping center. The sign maximizes the 5% allowance for this elevation. The other 48-square-foot sign is located on the western elevation facing Highway 9. The 2 signs at 5% of the wall area create a total allowance of 148 square feet. The existing signage totals 148 square feet. Intended for multiple tenants, the building has 5 doors. The entrance is on the northern side of the building. While there is signage in some of the windows, there is no wall signage on this elevation. The applicant, Melissa Smith, states that customers are often confused about where they should enter the building. They often try to enter through the door of one of the back rooms, which alarms patients and staff. Mrs. Smith has requested a third wall sign in order to direct patients to this entrance. The sign will total 22 square feet. Since only 2 signs are allowed, a variance is therefore required. This petition was not reviewed by the Design Review Board as they don't review signage. Staff held a focus meeting on May 10th, 2011, at which the following comments were provided. Building plan review, site plan review, the arborist, and DOT all had no issues. In response to the standard for consideration, the applicant responds as follows. Our building has no architectural entrance and is uniform on all sides. It's been set up as 2 suites, and we are leasing the entire building. This creates confusion for our patients. They walk around the building looking for an entrance and try to enter from back offices, x-ray rooms, and patient rooms. This alarms employees and patients. Our dumpster location and brick wall enclosure is placed directly in the visual path of the door and makes the entrance difficult to locate. We are set back and down from the road in a recessed area, which also affects visibility. The combination of difficulties is affecting our business. We are requesting the proposed signage to be placed on the far side of the building, furthest from the street, which is actually the entrance, to effectively mark the business. This sign would not be visible from the street due to other buildings blocking the view. However, it would be better visible for all the patients that will be entering from the shopping center. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Staff has no conditions or comments at this time. And this concludes the staff presentation.
Any questions from the board to the staff regarding this application? At this time, we'd like to call the applicant up to present. And if you would, please give us your name and address.
I'm Dr. David Smith.
Melissa Smith from Bethany Bend Urgent Care, 13081 Highway 9 North.
You guys heard pretty much all the information. The catch is that we have people who are often ill or injured that want to come to the front door, and they come in and they're not sure where to go, and they end up walking around the building. And part of it's their safety. The other factor is there's no structural entrance to the building. So when you look at it, people don't know where to go. And unless you have a lit sign, like a big lit sign in the window, which you can't have, you can't tell which one's the entrance. And it's not just a few people, it happens very frequently.
Basically, when we first chose, this signage, we were, of course, looking for advertising from the street. But once, we were up and running, we realized, wow, that this, since we're located in the back of the building, that this was a problem. We noticed it right away. We put signs up on all the other doors, use other door, but people still go, and then they have to find their way around. And a lot of times it's cold and they're sick and they're older or on crutches and wheelchairs, and you just feel really bad that there is no signage. We're not putting this sign for advertising. It's really just when they turn the corner, they see just a sign right above the door lit to know that that's the entrance to the building. We have the handicap parking right in front of that entrance, so all the cars seem to be parked at the end, and that's where they park and go in the x-ray room, because that's where our staff parks, so then they go in that way, because that's naturally what they think is there. So there's just a lot of reasons why they do this. I keep trying to figure out why they are doing this, but we just can't seem to put our finger on it. So several people from the city, we discussed it, and we decided to put in for a variance so that we could just appear more professional in this manner to the public and for their safety.
Any questions from the board to the applicant? Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. Do you currently have signs like not an entrance, other side, anything like that to try to direct people around?
We printed them, and they're on the doors. This building's like a four-sided building, and we have printed those, use other door with arrow, use other door, so that when they get there, they know that's not the right door, but they're still having to walk around a 5,000 square foot building, and they never turn back. They go all the way around to find it. So the signs aren't helping.
And you do have a sign over the the actual entrance that says entrance?
We haven't, we're not that little open, you know, the neon little thing that says open there. But like we say, that's exactly in the visibility line of the dumpster coming around the corner. People don't really look at that when they're driving the car, and it's difficult to see.
I guess the only other question I would have is you currently have 2 wall signs, and there's a lot of confusion, and I don't understand how a third wall sign is going to decrease confusion. It seems like now we have 3 wall
Wall
signs.
signs are for advertising from the road course, not
Right.
for, you know, to mark an entrance of the building.
But this looks just like those, doesn't it? Am I looking at the right
It's
thing?
much smaller, much smaller.
But I mean, it's still an advertising sign, though. I mean, it's the name of the business rather than trying to point it out as an
I just didn't
entrance.
know how other aesthetically to market it in the building from the outside.
Right. And my last question is there any foliage between this sign and the road? I mean, is there any foliage
There's
that's
a lot,
blocking?
we have a lot of tree foliage in front of our building, there's trees everywhere.
Does it block the visibility of your current signage?
Not yet.
Okay, well, we have to
The
talk
trees are
about,
young enough.
we have to talk about today. We can't talk about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but right now it does not block. And just so you know, we're under very, very strict guidelines, and they're not even guidelines, it's the criteria that we have to make decisions on for our sign ordinance, because the Milton sign ordinance is under attack from billboard companies and sign companies and that sort of thing. So we have very strict guidelines, and the guidelines say we can only grant a sign ordinance if there's foliage blocking the visibility of your sign, you know, that meets the current rules for signs. So if you don't have any foliage blocking your sign, there's, you know, what your argument is perfectly logical, but I don't know that we can, you know, we're just not allowed to grant a variance in that case. Because our rules that we operate under, legally, we can only grant, I mean, you heard it read at the beginning, a sign ordinance can only be granted if there's foliage blocking visibility of your current sign. So it's going to be awfully hard for us to grant
It's quite a
this.
bit of foliage, if you want to drive by, I mean, people say, generally, a lot of people say that, you know, your building is not visible. I've had 2 people deliver things
What's the
today.
signs?
I've had an arrow ant guy come this morning that was lost because he did not see our building, couldn't see the building, and said the trees were in the way.
Couldn't
I
see.
don't particularly find it, that's exactly the comment we get from other people. That's not my complaint today, but it is a concern of ours. And it's definitely, I see it, we feel, we knew it was going to be a problem in the beginning. If that's the situation, we can very much prove that there is visibility a problem. I didn't want to address that problem because our main concern is for the public safety, which I believe she read is also a concern and a reason for a variance, is public safety and health concerns.
Not with a sign ordinance. We only have one stipulation with sign, and it's foliage blocking
If we
visibility
need
of your
to, then
signage.
that is definitely an issue.
Yeah, to clarify, when I said the trees aren't blocking, you can still see the sign through the trees. But it's something, if you're driving and not looking for it, you aren't going to see it. You have to actually look at it to see it. Because we have trees planted right in front of the whole string of buildings there. So there is some factor. It's a relative question.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about, is because, you know, it has to be, the foliage has to be blocking the visibility of the signage from the adjoining public road, and I didn't have any trouble seeing your signs, that's why I'm having trouble.
What percentage of blockage is considered blockage?
We'd have to reread the stipulation. I don't think it even specifies a percentage. It just says
So
where a
it's a
sign
judgment call, yeah.
cannot be read from an adjoining public
Yeah.
road. So, you know, like I said, I feel for the situation, but I don't know that we're able to do much with it.
Just a comment. I mean, I live not far from there, and that's a busy street. And knowing if you have to take somebody at that location, it's hard when you're under stress, because usually you're taking somebody there if something happened or whatever. And I had family members come in, and they couldn't find locations. They were hurt at my house. And so I understand with the signage how important it is, because when you're driving in a busy street, unknown area, I think that is important.
I completely agree. I think the thing that the city of Milton is up against is we have to enforce our sign variant very strictly, very precisely, because if we vary from it, then the whole sign ordinance is under attack and it can fall apart. That's what happened up in north of us in Forsyth County. I don't know if you noticed all the billboards up there. It's exactly what happened. They just sort of granted a variance here and didn't grant a variance there. It was very irregular, and so their whole ordinance got thrown out. So that's why we're kind of under the gun we have a very strict stipulation, and we have to live under that. If we don't, we're going to lose our whole sign ordinance.
Okay.
I completely agree, and I don't argue with your plight or your logic, but I just don't know that there's much we can do if there's, unless there's just a tree blocking where you cannot read a sign from the adjoining public road is how it's worded in our bylaws.
It seems to me from reading this that your request is phrased in such a way that you're looking for relief of the sign variance because people were unable to find the entrance. But our standards for consideration stipulate that either an existing structure or foliage have to block the signage so that it can't be seen from an adjoining public road, which is a separate issue from people being able to find your building and not being able to find the entrance. So is that right?
Well, I'll read it just to get it all out on the table. Relief to the sign ordinance may only be granted where existing foliage or structures bring about a hardship whereby a sign meeting the minimum letter size, square footage, and height, which is exactly what you have. Your signage is exactly at the square footage and height allowed, where that sign cannot be read from an adjoining public road. So, like I said, I can see the signs from the adjoining public road, and there was no place along the road where there was a tree blocking the sign, and I couldn't see it.
I have one.
Statement, you said a structure or foliage, and that's where we put in there that the dumpster does block the entrance.
It blocks the current signage, though? I mean, that's what we're talking about.
The only new structure there is one that was put up by Sembler, which is a large structure. They put that up right in front of it does block the sign.
From an adjoining public road, though.
Yeah,
these are the
on
key.
Highway 9. They just put the big monument sign up. And in fact, they finished that.
Yeah, but I mean.
Have you brought that up with them?
Yeah, I asked about it. They said, well, we'll pay to move one of your signs if it didn't cost too much money.
See, that sounds like a tenant owner issue, right?
Well, it's something they went through the city and apparently had been working on it for over a year. And so when they put that up, they had, I guess, initiated that prior to us ever leasing the building. And that's something that the city regulated, their ability to put a sign in at that one location, only that one location.
Have you considered moving the signs that you already have in order to orient them in such a way that the entrance is apparent from anybody passing by?
Well, the problem is, because of all the trees on the road, you can't see the building in the first place. If we move what signs we do have, you never find the place. We already have people that drive by daily, and they can't find the place. So it's not an option.
Well,
we have trees like about every 20 feet.
The sign on the north side is not going to help that, though. You have to admit that. A sign on the north side of the building is not going to help people from the street identify your building because you're not going to see this sign from the
Right.
street.
If you put a sign on the north side of the street, you're right. It would not.
So what-
change.
And the point being that you maximize your total square footage that you can use. So, now the question is, how do we best utilize that so that we can fix the problem? And that's what I'm getting at. And if you don't feel like that readjusting the signage that you have would fix the problem, then I don't see how adding a third sign necessarily would.
I have a question about this. Is this where the entrance is, where you're going to be putting the sign?
Yes.
Would this, your name and have entrance underneath it? Does that make sense so that,
Yeah, it does.
We can put anything.
I mean, do you see this? So that they could see entrance and then they know where to go? Because that would be difficult, people walking in the x-ray room or whatever.
Yeah, if we could put it on the window of the building anywhere, you just have the entrance alone, it would work. We seem to have something.
I mean, They're trying to put it over their entrance so that people, yeah,
I have no argument with what
Yeah.
they're trying to do.
yeah.
It's perfectly logical.
And I understand what you're saying
We
too.
just can't vary from this, though. And now, if you want us to defer it, and you can come back and make a case from this spot on Highway 9, I cannot see my wall sign because of this monument sign or this
And
tree
take
that's
pictures.
blocking it, foliage or structure, you're right, I did miss the structure. Then we have met the letter of our requirement, and we can grant the variance then. And like I said, I have no trouble with what you're trying to do. I mean, it makes perfect sense. But if we grant it based on, well, this is logical and this is a good idea, then when someone else comes and says, I want to put up a billboard because it's logical and it's a good idea, and you gave it to them, but if you don't give it to me, I'm going to take it to court and we're going to knock out your entire sign ordinance. Milton loses its sign ordinance. So this is just a really important issue for the city of Milton. And I know it's an important issue for you in this case, but we can't sacrifice the whole sign ordinance for one situation. But like I said, if you can come back and show me from this spot on an adjoining public road, I cannot see my sign, and people are having trouble finding my building because the visibility of my sign's being blocked, I'm right there with you. And I can vote for it, and I can say, because evidence is right here, that this law, the letter of my
Are you saying
consideration
that,
is met.
You said you drove by, right? Is that right?
I've driven by
And
it
you
many
didn't see
times.
any obstruction to our
Well,
signage?
I've seen it many times driving by, but I didn't drive by looking for the spot
Obstruction.
in the road where I could meet the
Yeah.
letter of this
Because
stipulation.
it's very, I didn't know we needed to take it from this approach, but that, obviously, the frustration is led to this.
Right.
Where this wouldn't be a problem if there wasn't obstruction. There's obstruction from the trees, there's obstruction from other similar buildings, there's obstruction from the dumpster, and there's obstruction from a lot of areas that I can see blind spots all the time. And it's not just because, it's a good idea. I mean, I just assumed that that's why you understood why we were putting a sign there, was because there was obstruction. If it was clear, I wouldn't need to do this.
Well,
And so it's not just because it's a good idea and it serves the purpose well. There is an obstruction, and it is foliage and it is structural, and it is very important to us. And I understand your stance on holding firm on your city signage laws, but that's exactly where we applied for a variance, to consider that. And
This is
we'll-
actually,
we'll have-
this is 2 adjacent suites, is that right? Yes. Okay. And inside,
This is one 500 square foot building that is not facing the road with no behind. It's sitting in the middle of a shopping center, so it's not like, it's facing the road, that's just naturally the entrance. Our entrance is here, so it's accessible many ways. There's sidewalks around it. There's many obstructions to this building. From other buildings, there's just more
She
obstructions
said
than
that.
clear.
She says that. The only comment I'd like to make is I agree with you guys 100%. I have a small business in healthcare, and there's nothing worse than seeing somebody get out of their car. They can't even hardly walk. Just trying to figure out how to get in the front door, and they're banging on every door out there trying to get in, and you hate to let them in because you don't know who they are. And by the time they get in the front door, they're a little mad at everybody that works there, and they're not too happy. I'm with you guys 100%. What I wish you would have done is come with pictures that showed all the obstruction to the signs, which would make it easier for us to approve something. And I think Mr. Kilgore's thing is you'd probably be better off if you let us defer this for 30 days. It won't cost you a penny.
And just take some pictures from
Take
Highway
some
9.
pictures from all the areas,
So you
come
can
in
see
here and
yourself.
show us what's blocked, and it'll make it so much easier for us to approve.
It's a slam dunk at that point. You can
Exactly.
show that.
It's not that we want to turn you down, it's just that what we were
Legal.
presented here isn't enough information, but I agree with you, and I think you're 100% right, and I think you deserve something.
Yeah, we don't want to turn you down. We want to approve it if we can approve it without jeopardizing the sign variance, which I think we can do.
I do too.
If you can just
I think
bring us
so.
that.
If you can
evidence.
hang in there 30 days,
Sure, yeah.
and I know you want this signed tomorrow, believe me, I
We
get
really
it.
don't. We're willing to wait.
Okay,
That's fine.
I think the best thing that you two could do
Okay,
is to allow us to defer this,
okay.
so you can come back in and show us what's blocking what, and take pictures.
Walk up Highway 9, take pictures.
Yeah,
all
take
along
pictures of
there,
Highway 9.
'cause that's the adjoining public.
We
road
even
that
had
we're
somebody,
talking about.
probably shouldn't even say this, they got in the car with the camera and somebody drove and somebody else did the videos they went through. It was
Make sure
terrific.
you get somebody else to take a video.
Yeah, don't drive and do it yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fine.
but
I see 'em right here.
I understand. That's fine.
I think you deserve it.
I think it'd be a win-win if we
I
can
do
do
too.
that. Because
Yeah.
you'll get your sign.
We want to help
nothing
you,
doesn't
you have to help us.
Yeah.
I understand. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for your time.
Great, thank you.
All right, now,
Good job, Scott.
is there any public comment?
Great job.
That's a first.
Yeah, that's a first.
We try.
Okay, you now have an opportunity to say anything else if you'd like to say it.
We're going through the procedures.
No, we're good, guys.
Good.
I appreciate your help.
Okay, any questions to the staff about
I
this?
have a question for the attorney. So this building was intended to be two businesses in the same structure. If that had been the case, would they be allowed to install this sign as they requested it?
That's a good point.
Is the,
I don't,
yeah, we'd
What?
have to look. Is the 148 square feet?
I don't have
Is
the,
that-
Well, but if it's two,
If it was supposed to be
Two
two.
separate
Pieces of
things.
business.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
says
great
per
question.
business.
They would be considered differently, separately.
Yeah, it's the signage is per business.
Yeah,
okay.
it seems like that's one of the issues at
Okay.
play here too,
Now-
is that
now
they've
they
got
might-
growing
the-
pains associated.
The size of the wall
Yeah,
might limit them.
right, yeah. Because in the
5%.
size of the structure,
Okay.
it's, what, 5% of the size of the
Okay.
surface area in the building?
That's not right.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, at this time, the public hearing is closed. I open the floor for a motion.
I'll move to defer for 30 days to receive more evidence.
Second.
Next meeting.
So you have to
To the
move
next-
your
Move to defer to
name
the
in
next
there.
meeting. Yeah, sorry.
Do we have a second?
It'll be in the record. A second.
Second. Discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand to defer. Opposed, same size. Pass 4-0 to defer. See you next month.
Yeah, I'll be in DC.
At this time, we'd like to present B11-007. Angela, will you please present?
Petition number V11-007, 1260 Rolling Links Drive. The site is a single-family home located on 1.3 acres in the White Column subdivision. The subdivision is zoned CUP, Community Unit Plan, per Z0136. The prior owner purchased this property in 2005, at which time the stream buffer was 35 feet. Since then, the buffers have increased to a 25-foot state buffer, an additional 25-foot City of Milton buffer, and an additional 25-foot impervious setback. The applicant states that after careful consideration and consultation with multiple experts, they determined that the only location in the area was the area directly behind the house. This was chosen due to the location of the reserved septic area and the steep topography of the yard. The applicants propose a 721-square-foot pool and spa and an 876-square-foot patio made of pervious pavers. The total proposed encroachment into the 75-foot impervious setback is 1,337 square feet. In order to mitigate this encroachment, the applicant intends to tie all of the downspouts from the house into a 4-inch underground pipe, which will lead the stormwater to a 4 by 10 by 4 foot deep gravel absorption pit. The deck drains will also be tied into this pipe. No new disturbance into the 50-foot buffer is proposed. A variance is required for this disturbance. The Design Review Board courtesy review. The board had no aesthetic concerns concerning this petition. The staff held a focus meeting on May 10th, 2011, at which time the following comments were provided. Building plan review and DOT had no issues. Site plan review, a mitigation plan will be required prior to the issuance of a building permit. Arborists, no specimen trees will be disturbed during construction. Standards for consideration. The approval of a variance is based on the following considerations. This is specific for a stream buffer. When a property's shape, topography, or other physical conditions existing at the time of the adoption of the ordinance prevents land development unless a buffer variance is granted, and unusual circumstances when strict adherence to the minimum buffer requirements in the ordinance would create an extreme hardship. The applicant responds as follows. The size, shape, topography of the lot, and location of the house on the property limit the possible location of the swimming pool. If the pool had been constructed at the time of the house construction, this variance would not have been required. We believe the environmental impact, if any, would be minor, and drainage improvement incorporated into the plan would actually improve stormwater management. As part of the construction, we plan to improve the conditions of the property by collecting the stormwater runoff. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Number one, provide a mitigation plan to be approved by the City of Milton engineer prior to the issuance of a building permit. And two, install tree protection fencing along the 50-foot buffer line prior to the start of construction. This concludes the staff presentation.
Any questions to the staff from the board?
I have one. The applicant's request, they state that if the pool had been constructed at the time of the house construction, the variance would not have been required. Can you verify that?
I believe this house was constructed in 2005, and that would have been, I need Walter here, I think that would have been just before the rules were changed. So,
Milton was incorporated in 2006.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
we know it was before that.
well, the Fulton County requirements would have been the same.
And the requirements would have
Oh,
been,
did Fulton County institute the 75 before we? I didn't realize. Okay. Well,
okay.
Any other questions to staff? This time we'd like to call the applicant forward to present. And if you would, please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Bill Lafferty. I live at 20 Henyard Garden in Mahwah, New Jersey. We're relocating back to Georgia. I spent some time working up in New York City and lived up there. I was originally in Crooked Creek, so we're settling back in White Columns. We have the house at 1260 Rolling Links Drive under contract. Mr. Ken Lacey's the current owner of the home. I've talked to Mr. Lacey about this issue in a lot of detail, and he indicated to us that he always wanted to have a pool there. And as we go through the plan, I'll turn the super technical stuff over to these guys. They're much smarter than I am about that. But and we'll get into some of the detail about it. A lot of what I was going to talk about tonight, Angela so eloquently presented. So if you want me to go back through that, I can, but I think she covered pretty much what I wrote in there. So really the highlights of the hardship were that, and we'll get into some more detail, but the house was pushed back based on an original setback of 35 feet, which was on the plot plan. When we put the house, when we began our due diligence, it was even shown on the survey as 35 feet. And as we got into it further, I just wanted to check with the town and the surveyor, and there was a fellow by the name of Mark Law, who you guys probably know. And I said, hey, have them look at this. It's a stormwater runoff from number 7, between 7 and 8 at White Columns Golf Club. So he said, yeah, well, that's going to change that. So we got the survey in, and we saw that that would encroach in on the impervious setback. Again, that pie-shaped lot really has created that house to be pushed back, so that was another pretty big issue. We studied this issue pretty hard and tried to determine if there was some other workarounds on the site to put the pool, but as we'll get into some detail on that, you'll see that the septic field is on the east side of part of the open period of the backyard, but that would also probably encroach some. And then on the west side, you'll see that that's set up for the reserved septic field. And this was mentioned as well, but we came in and wanted to do a courtesy review with the architectural board to make sure that the plan and all that stuff looked reasonable, and also mentioned that no trees are going to be cut. It's heavily landscaped on both sides of the property. There was no objections from the homeowners that are on either side. The mitigation plan, again, actually is going to improve the situation as if above where if the pool was originally built that Ken wanted to put there, it would have been slightly back farther and not included some of those things. So at the end of the day, that's, you know, an environmental benefit. And as you'll see when these gentlemen, Mickey and his brother-in-law Mike, will go through their plan, you'll see that it's well thought out and it takes into consideration a lot of the issues that I think that you guys try to look at when you make determinations on providing variance on matters like this. So if it's okay with you, I'm just going to turn it over to these gentlemen and let them speak on some of the technical matters. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Michael Cochran. I'm here on behalf of Atlanta Pools and Mr. Lafferty as well. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the technical stuff. We did pull the pool closer up to the home. As on the drawing, the pool is 8 foot from the existing lower patio. That's relatively close with a deck up above, but we're trying to pull it up to try to stay out of your buffer. That 75-foot buffer is there. We're asking for 23 feet of it. That keeps you 2 foot from the original 50-foot buffer. We are taking the extra mile and trying to do pavers with a 12-inch sub-base of crush and run gravel to help with, so there's not a lot of runoff. It is going to suck up the water and try to maintain the water up by the pool deck. Like Mr. Lafferty said, we're doing downspouts and area drains and running it down to a 4x10, 4-foot deep gravel pit. Instead of running it down to the easement for drainage, we're going to actually keep the water on the property there up by the pool to not add to the storm drain. All these things we're mentioning do cost Mr. Lafferty extra money above normal processes. He's willing to make these to spend the money to make this right, to get this approved, and go over and beyond what we normally would do. We are going to be putting up 2 rows of Class C silt fence on the 50-foot buffer to try to protect any soil or erosion going down to the storm drain. We also, like we mentioned, be putting up tree-safe fence to protect any of the specimen trees below the work site as well. I don't know if we did send in pictures to you guys. The pool elevation with the home is about 13 foot above the stormwater drain. So the elevation is pretty dramatic from the bottom of the storm drain up to where the pool elevation would be. I know it's real hard to tell with the topos and everything on the one Mickey there is holding, but it's substantially higher than the storm drain. I guess that's about all I want to say, Mickey. Was there anything you would like to add?
Just the fact that we took a lot of time designing this pool so that we didn't encroach any further than we absolutely had to. Like Michael said, it's 8 feet from the back patio, which typically you don't want to put a pool that close with an upper deck because kids will try to jump in, that type of stuff. The spa is on the end of the pool as opposed to the back side for the view. And, you know, we've just taken every precaution. We have spent a lot of money on this design, from architectural to engineering and everything else to try to present our case professionally today so that hopefully you guys will give us an approval on the situation here.
One more thing, sorry, last minute note. The septic approval, Kenneth Lacey did get that approval back in the original permit process and held off for personal reasons. We do have that renewed as of March this year. We did go ahead, part of the due diligence, start the process, and we did get that reapproved for septic. And as on the drawing, as the proposed reserve field, that's where that would need to be in order to get the septic reapproved.
I'm going to, if I can add one more thing. Question was raised, great question. Well, Ken bought the house in '05, moved in. The ordinance Angela, correct me if I'm wrong on this, was an ordinance changed in December of 2006, and he had a 2-year grandfather period. He was going to put the pool in there, but he had some other issues going on that deferred him. Just as a note for kind of some history and background.
Any questions from the board to the applicant?
About the septic area, you kind of touched on it, and that was going to be a question of mine. So you're planning on relocating the septic tanks?
No, sir.
Part of the septic and environmental process is there has to be room for reserve in the yard in case the original system does fail. So in other words, if it was a lot smaller lot and there was only one septic field, they would not let me put the pool in if there was not room for reserve.
And that's part of our hardship. The main system is in the front yard. There's a secondary system in the lower right-hand portion, and then we hope to save the left-hand side of the yard for room for repair in case the system were to ever fail.
Because when we checked with the folks on that, we did our due diligence on that, and they basically said you wouldn't dig up one of those old systems. You would need to hold off for a reserve spot.
So that's not necessarily a function of installing the pool, though. That's something that...
No, sir. We just have setbacks that we have to stay away from the tanks and the field lines.
Mm-hmm.
And again, part of the hardship here.
Yeah, and in addition to that, to just give you a good feel of what's going on globally on the site.
Question for you. You're not in the home right now, correct?
Correct.
You were not in?
I'm not.
Okay. And White Collins has a homeowners association, is that right?
Yes.
Have you contacted them?
We have not, but these gentlemen have worked with them extensively, and so what we've done with respect to that, we would require approval. Mickey, you...
Most definitely. We do have to get the subdivision approval prior to construction. And we built probably 40-plus pools in the neighborhood.
Yeah, great.
And we do plans like the color drawing here for the subdivision. And they've always been great to approve all the jobs we've constructed.
Let me ask one other question, then I'll reveal what I'm getting at here.
Okay, sure.
Do you have any neighbor letters or any kind of feedback from your neighbors on the other side of the property about what they feel about this construction? Because obviously there's going to be some noise associated with it.
Yeah, well, we certainly don't have any objections from them. The lot on each of these sides is heavily wooded, and they can't even see back in there.
Right, but that's a public stream for all intents and purposes. It's going to flow behind several homes, so any sediment or runoff that goes into that stream could potentially impact other homeowners.
Every house around Mr. Lafferty here has a pool there already, so there's pools in almost every single home.
Okay.
That belong
Well,
his home there.
This stream goes right into the lake. There aren't any homes. This is the 7 golf hole, and this is the 8 hole, and then this is the lake there. I think
Okay.
it's called Dell Lake.
And also,
So there isn't really any homes on those sides.
And the reason I ask is one of our standards of consideration is that the public good is done and there's no detriment to surrounding properties. So as a part of that, we have to establish what
Sure.
those adjacent homeowners think, and typically we have some kind of feedback. an applicant's seen the homeowners association. Sometimes the HOA president will come in and speak on their behalf. And I just, kind of wanted to dig some of that up.
We didn't exactly get that done, but for the stormwater, again, we've taken extra precautions to do a stormwater gravel pit so that the rainwater is
Right.
diverted into that area as opposed to going into the creek. This system is a green system for the swimming pools. There is no backwash system whatsoever. This is a self-contained system that's cleaned individually. Again, we have no pool runoff because of backwashing or anything like that that's going to affect the creek.
Could you estimate what the max slope, the decline is on the back half of that
We've probably got
pool?
about a 13-foot elevation from the backside of the pool down to the creek area.
Okay. That's all.
So just touching on your question, John, with respect to the issue about the other folks, the Ritters live next door, and I know them well, so they're very much in favor of this type of thing because it increases the value of their real estate overall, and it increases the value of the real estate of people in and around that section and the Pinnacle section. Because when you look at this type of a home and you say it's conducive that this property would have a pool or the ability to have a pool as it's sold, because in that particular type of home, it's not uncommon to have pools, and a lot of people actually want that.
I hear you. Unfortunately, we can't take that for granted, though.
We do apologize for not bringing approval letters prior to this meeting, but we weren't 100% sure that we were going to get it to even have an approval. There has been a variance sign that's been posted there for probably a month now that the neighbors have seen too. And typically, if there's any objections, they would be here tonight normally.
Okay, one other thing. I've lied. Sorry.
I was going to mention our consideration.
Have you done anything in terms of earth moving, surveying?
No, sir, we've done nothing yet.
Well, this is a survey, yes.
Okay,
In
but no.
addition to being a site plan, it is a survey,
Okay, nothing's been dug up. No started
but
construction.
not the survey for the construction of the pool.
Okay, but this is a new. I didn't see what this was dated, but this is something within the past few months.
Yes.
This is
Yeah,
great.
all that stuff
This is
is done
existing.
as part of the due diligence for this project.
The pictures that we provided of the backyard, it's just as is right now. We've not touched anything.
Right, okay, all right.
Start construction prior to all blessings.
Okay.
Where's the gravel pit? I didn't see it on there, but I was probably just not
Can I
seeing it.
approach?
Yes, please.
Speed of this?
Left one right below the proposed septic.
Where is it on there?
And it's kind of labeled right here.
Oh, well, okay.
4 by 10
This is
by
it?
4 absorption.
Yeah, that's it.
And one thing, as you're looking at the survey, the equipment is not located in your buffer at all. It will be out of the 75-foot buffer.
Does the pool drain go into that gravel pit as well?
There is no
There is
pool drain.
pool drain.
It's not a backwash system. Everybody's familiar with our sand filters where you backwash every other week. We use a cartridge. It's a green system. So there's no backwashing. To get the bacteria out of filter, you break the unit down and just hose it off. So there's no backwashing that's going to go down to that extra.
What do you do if the pool fills up too high from rainwater?
It does have an automatic overflow on it from rain.
And that goes where?
Out into the gravel pit.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
How are you going to route the soil haul off when you're moving that dirt off the property?
We'll bring a dump truck in, load it into the truck, and haul it off the property.
Okay. I'm just thinking there might be a grass guy that's going to be happy about this. But,
Oh, the
A lot
grass,
of people will be.
the grass guy would be
he's
really
gonna be
happy.
digging up some
It's a beautiful
yeah.
pool.
nice looking
Oh,
grass.
yeah.
Oh my God, it's beautiful.
Any other questions to the applicant from the board?
Stream buffers, the normal variance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I take it you're not here to make public comment, or you are?
Mr. Realtor,
I figure.
I want them to have the pool.
Well, of course you do.
It's okay, because, you talk about the architectural review committee. I mean, everybody understands the intent of an
If you're going to talk, you have to come up, fill out a card, and say your name and your address.
Allison Kloster, 900 Kings Arms Way, Alpharetta, 30022. Okay? I'll fill this out, I promise.
The only thing, you have some great questions about the Architectural Review Committee, and as a realtor in Atlanta and Alpharetta forever, and love our community very much, I'm only interested in property values increasing for all of our sakes. And what they're trying to do makes perfect sense for this particular house, this particular section, and this particular subdivision. The Architectural Review Committee wants to approve anything that's going to improve property values for the subdivision. So with that being said, Atlanta Pools has done so many pools in that subdivision. They're very, very familiar with what's going to be approved by that committee. Obviously, you can see the designs are where they went, beautiful. But that's after we know that we can get the permit and the process can begin that way. If they didn't like the pool, it would be turned down at that point. And I'll stop.
Thank you. At this time, you have the opportunity to add anything that you'd like to add, or you don't have to. It's all up to you guys.
You can rebut the public
You can
comment.
rebut the public comment if you'd like.
I think we'll rest our case.
Okay?
Very good.
Any questions to the staff? Okay, at this time, the public hearing is closed. This time, I'd like to open the floor for a motion. Since I can't make one,
I'll make a motion.
thank you, sir.
I move to approve V11-007 with two conditions as recommended by the staff.
What page are you on, Scott?
6. The two conditions that staff recommended are provide a mitigation plan to be approved by the City of Milton engineer prior to issuance of a, I guess, would it be a building permit or a land disturbance?
Well, it would be a pool permit, technically.
Okay, I'll just say a permit. And the second condition being install tree protection fencing along the 50-foot buffer line prior to the start of construction.
And could you put a third one on there to make sure they get approval from homeowners association before?
Yeah, I tried that too.
Can you just add
I
that?
think that's between them and the homeowner.
I think you're right.
I don't think we
Okay.
get involved in that. I
Do
mean,
we-
they'll have to do it.
Do we have a second?
It really is.
I second it.
Discussion.
I'll state, I just want to read the considerations that we're operating under for a stream buffer variance, which is what we're talking about. You know, we're looking at the property shape. Obviously, it is a pie shape. The topography, obviously, it has the steep drop off, so there are limited locations for the pool. Other physical conditions would be the reserve septic tank, the reserve septic area has to be reserved. Obviously, they can't put the pool in the front yard with the septic system out there. So I think, you know, and we've established that these conditions existed at the time of the adoption of the ordinance and would otherwise prevent land development unless a buffer variance is granted. And then, of course, the second consideration is that unusual circumstances, when strict adherence to the buffer requirements, as we've just stated, would indeed cause a hardship. In this case, they simply wouldn't be able to build their pool. So I think they've met the considerations that we have to operate under, and that's the purpose for my motion.
Any other discussion?
The silt fencing that they mentioned, that would be required as a part of a typical construction
Correct.
plan. So
Yes,
that's-
sir.
They didn't agree to anything just now that was above and beyond.
No, they have to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, they'd probably have
It's
to
just
do
some kind of
that.
fancy silt fencing, I don't know if, I mean, this,
No, it's just.
as far as I'm concerned, as soon as the thing's in the ground, it's not gonna pose a problem, but during the construction phase,
Could.
that's when you get the
Mhm.
Well,
erosion.
is that different from tree protection fencing? Is that why you're raising
Yeah.
the question?
It's the same thing.
Well,
No,
silt
tree protection
fencing
is
and
just
tree
they're not-
protection are two different
Is it?
things.
Okay.
Can you address that, staff?
Yeah, it's definitely different. The tree save is an orange fencing to erect close to the trees so that they are protected. And then the silt fencing is a Class C silt fencing with mesh holding the dirt and erosion from going into the creek while we're constructing the pool. And then once the pool's constructed, then we'll have landscaping for erosion control after that.
Is that something you do in the normal course of business in order
Yes,
to
sir,
get
we
the
do.
permit
We have our
approved?
blue cards, our white cards from the state, and that does have to be done prior to excavation.
Is there anything specific on this site that's different that you feel like you need to do above and beyond?
You know, sir, we can do a double row of it maybe sometimes when we're near a creek and maybe put some hay, but that is important during construction.
Are you considering moving to amend and adding a condition?
This is your last.
The Army's moving me to Washington D.C. next month, so this is my final chance to shine.
Let's just
But
make it
I will.
It doesn't even have to be friendly, just move to amend. That'll be fine.
Get up there and straighten them out while you're there.
Let's just make it easy. Any other discussion?
He already agreed to it.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve V11-007 to allow a swimming pool and deck to encroach in the 75-foot impervious setback with the following two conditions. One, provide a mitigation plan to be approved by the City of Milton engineer prior to issuance of a building/pool permit. And number two, install tree protection fence along the 50-foot buffer line prior to the start of the construction. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, and passed 8-0.
Beautiful pool.
Thank you and good luck.
Yeah.
We're gonna miss you.
Yeah, well,
Friday
it's so
night.
good to have you here for the
Yeah,
last time.
for the first time in forever.
Yeah, first and last. Walt's going to be sad he missed it.
Any other business?
Really enjoyed it. Yeah, I will. Okay.
Okay.
Just wanted to say this in closing. It's been great working with each and every one of you. I'm sorry that the other two members could not be here. Staff, Angela, been there since the beginning, helped us along the way. And to the consigliere, thank you very much for everything you've done for us. I'm going to miss everybody and just carry on in good faith. You guys do a great job. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, John.
We need a motion to,
I will move to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor, raise your right hand.
Woo.
Is that the one motion?